Hello and welcome back to A Slightly Twisted Female. I'm your host, Brittany Rue. I missed you guys. Good to see you. Today the topic is peak trans, and I just wanted to just catch up on a lot of things. I've been doing other things in life, and it's been a while. I know that even in the time that since I had started this channel and in the time that I've been away, and kind of watching from the sidelines, I'm seeing how much of a shift has begun to happen in terms of this sort of cultural awareness of gender ideology. More people than ever, I believe, are beginning to peak. And it's wonderful to see. I think that it would be very naive to say that we have won the war, that we're close to winning the war. I think that this is going to amplify, and I think the true sort of agenda and those who have the most to profit from gender ideology are going to begin to really rear their heads and become more apparent. So all of these sort of nefarious underlying motives, people with these motivations that are not surface, that are not obvious, as more people begin to wake up, and as this is, going into the 2024 election year, we're seeing that the trans issue is becoming a big voting issue on the ballot. It's absolutely on the ballot. It's absolutely going to swing a lot of people in how they choose to vote. We see it now as, we're coming, getting closer to the primaries, and it's been a huge topic. Unfortunately, I have seen gender critical talking points sort of being co-opted by, the Republican Party as a way to net in a lot of moderate voters and swing voters. While on the one hand, I want to just be like, great, whatever, we'll get this out of here, but we need to make sure it's done correctly. We need to make sure that, the reasons for getting rid of gender ideology are for the right reasons, right? Otherwise, we're just going to keep swinging back and forth, because so much of gender ideology is in response to what were previously really rigid gender norms and gender ideals. And if we see this trans thing as being a justification for why gender roles were a good thing to begin with, we're just going to keep swinging like a pendulum back and forth. It's important that the average person, the average voter understands, really why gender ideology is such a threat to women, children, and men, in society at large. So it's really good to see you guys. Thanks. Yeah, and it's hard, and listen, there are a lot of, I think, Republican speakers and, media people. I think that there are some that do understand. So I've been in contact with Dana Kennedy, and shout out to her, Dana Kennedy of the New York Post. She had done our story for the Trenton and Mahan Correctional Facility protests that we had, in support of women who are being housed captive with trans-identifying males. And these are some of the worst dangerous men. And 2 women have been impregnated at this New Jersey State Women's Correctional Facility. And, for those who remember, back in April, we did a Let Women Speak event, and it really, it picked up, Tucker Carlson picked it up as a story. The New York Post, the Post Millennial, the Blaze, it really got a lot of traction, and I'm so grateful for those women. I'm not here to make a name for myself. I don't care. I just want to see this gone by the time that my girls and my children reach teenagerhood. That's why I'm here. That's why I care. And so, anyway, Dana Kennedy with the New York Post, I've been in contact with her a lot. We have each other's personal phone numbers. We actually talk on the phone a lot now. And she has really peaked heavily, and she said she like binge watched my channel, and that, you know, I introduced her to a lot of different talking points, and she's, you know, she just did a coverage of just some other really important gender critical topics. So, you know, keep an eye out for her. So, but she has been traditionally, you know, right wing, and there are some really great right wing people, but we need to, like, you know, just make sure that the way that this is polarizing, it's for the right reasons. And I'm seeing, you know, I want to know, like, from the chat, what were some of your guys' peak trans moments? What was the point where you said something is really wrong here, something's off? You know, and I think that Dylan Mulvaney has done a good job of piquing a lot of people, but I also think that there's more people who are really digging their heels in. And again, as more information comes to light about the pseudoscience that is gendered medicine, about the sort of lies being told in these fake statistics, these poorly researched, you know, data points, that we're finding out more and more this whole idea that people who are gender dysphoric, who don't receive, you know, affirmation surgery, are more likely to harm themselves. You know, that's being deconstructed as false. That was a poor study design. There's not, you know, there are not high quality studies to back that up. We're starting to dismantle a lot of this stuff. And what we're going to see is, for those who continue to dig their heels in and to still defend this, people are going to start showing their ass. You're going to have to really take a hard look at those people and say, why is it so hard for you to evaluate this stuff with a clear head and come to a conclusion that really any sane, logical person would have to come to? Is that gender ideology is primarily a religious belief, that the, you know, fanaticism around it has become cult-like, that there is absolutely a social contagion factor that is fueled by social media, the internet, pop culture, that gender, that it doesn't make sense, because on the one hand we push the idea that sex and gender are two different things, that, you know, sex is about you know, your biology, and gender is more to do with who you are inside and who you feel. Well, if that's true, then why is it that sex reassignment surgery, or the genital mutilation of patients, both minors and adults alike, is so crucial for the mental well-being of trans people? So which is it, right? Are sex and gender two different things, or is the sex, you know, the biological sex, a crucial component of someone's gender identity? Why do we need to be giving breast implants to prisoners? Doe Eyes says, so again, for anyone who doesn't know what the term peak trans is, it's the concept that it's that moment where all of a sudden it's like the wool has been pulled away from your eyes, and you finally see through the mist and see this trans movement and gender ideology for what it really is. And you're like, oh my God, I've been playing along. I somehow bought into this bizarre idea, and I went along with it, and now all of a sudden it's like you have no idea why. Because now it's like, it's so obvious that it makes no sense. It's so obvious that it's dangerous. And you're just sitting there like, and for me, any intellectually honest person who has reached peak trans can never go back to supporting the trans movement. There are some people who will kind of waft back and forth in between supporting true trans. But again, any person who is not fully and completely ready and willing and almost eager to shed themselves of any affiliation with allyship towards gender ideology has some sort of motivation, whether it be they have a lot of friends and colleagues who still fully buy into the trans thing and they don't want to lose their friends. They want to keep up this image that they're the tolerant left, that they're so understanding, or maybe it's I know a lot of men. It's funny because I finally called out this one guy I know who has a big podcast, and he's always, I know because he hawks my social media and will always post things. It seems like it's in response to something I post, and it's always this pro-trans stuff. And I was like, Jeff, at this point it's giving GAMP. It's giving gyneandromorphophile. And these are, the so quote unquote straight men who are attracted to these paraphilic AGPs or, trans women, right? The type of man who is attracted to a man who, wants to morph himself into, with female bodies where he's just kind of this, Frankenstein. That's a specific thing, and that's gyneandromorphophile. So you got to look at people and be like, what is it? For other people, it's because they affirmed their child. In the worst case scenario, it's for the people who surgically affirmed their child. Now, they bought into it in the worst possible way that one could, with life-altering and potentially life-ending impacts on that child and that family for life. There's no going back. Once you have inverted the penis of your child, there is no going back. Okay, once you have chemically sterilized your child, there is no going back. And for people, that is such a difficult thing to grapple with. That, oh my God, I was so sheepish. I was so uncritical. I was so gullible and naive and really selfish, because a lot of times it's about attention and it's about, this white knighting and things like that, that I actually put my child on a sacrificial altar to be sacrificed in the name of, tolerance and just be nice, and, for something that became a sort of a cultural hysteria, and I can never go back. Those people will have a very difficult time acknowledging the reality of peak trans, so much so that they can't even listen. And that's why a lot of trans activists refuse to even hear or engage with gender critical arguments. That's why you can't even speak it. You can't even question or challenge, because again, it's so easy to pique people with the truth. And it is so uncomfortable and painful for people who have so fully and completely bought into this that there is no going back, for them to hear the truth. So the only thing that they can do is force other people and force the world around them to continue to affirm this lie. It absolutely is the emperor is naked. Okay, we're all agreeing and saying something and supporting something that's insane just to let somebody else live out a delusion. But let me take a look at what some of your guys's what your peak trans moments are, because this stuff is important. It's important that we understand what is connecting with people. What is really. So Doai said, I was full-blown leftist, SJW, which is social justice warrior, LGBTQ bisexual. Gender ideology is what has me peaked, and will no longer be voting liberal for the foreseeable future. I wouldn't say I'm a single issue voter, but yeah, and it is. Oh, is the audio messed up? Helena said audio. Is the audio okay? Is it crappy? Dun, 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 dun. Let me know if the audio is okay. Yeah, I really missed you guys too. Helena Blavatsky says, corporate media doesn't cover this topic. If they did, there'd be more peaking. Yeah, and right now it's only it's really only Fox News and other independent sources like the Daily Wire or the Post Millennial. New York Post is doing some, but if you Google, let's take a look real quick. If you Google transgender, it's all pro-trans everything. Hold on, let me see. So let's take a look at. All right, so look, let's take a look at what it says when you Google trans, because this stuff is so important. You got to understand, Google, what we put in, people are only going to look at the first few, first few things that come back, and it absolutely has a massive impact on how people get and information and shape their opinions. Because again, that's the only way. They don't know how to go much deeper than putting something into Google. And that's a very authoritarian, that's a very powerful place for Google to be, and for them to manipulate an algorithm to support a political stance is so dangerous and autocratic. We should all be so beyond offended that a company believes that it has the right to not only dominate the landscape, to not only filter out what sort of like search results that we get, fine, but then to go and aggressively dominate the landscape, and make sure that there is limited competition. But the good news is that there is still competition. DuckDuckGo. And again, Twitter, staying in tune with gender critical. The best thing really that you can do to stay in tune with real gender critical news is following our turf group. We need to continue to circulate information about ourselves, figure out who are journalists who are on our side. Somebody like Dana Kennedy, we'll get a list. Keep following what they write. Pay attention to Redux, Genevieve Gluck, Anna Slatz, Helen Joyce, Shapeshifter, Exelanzic, Karen Davis, Vanessa Vokey. So, all right, I just want to take a look really quick. So when we look at, all right, so this is when you Google transgender, right? So let's see what comes up. A transgender person, often abbreviated as trans person, somebody whose gender identity or gender expression or both do not conform to that typically associated with the sex they are assigned at birth. So what does that mean, typically associated? How is that not so completely misogynistic and just backwards? So what does that mean? Because if they don't, what? If they're not like heteronormative, if they don't want to wear dresses, what exactly does that mean? And then what does that have to do with genitalia? What doesn't that just mean? Just go ahead and be gender non-conforming? So you're telling me that, because I'm wearing shorts right now, right? Okay, so let's take a look. I'm wearing some soccer shorts. There was a time when women didn't wear that. Does that mean that I'm a trans man? Am I a trans man because I wore pants the other day? Am I a trans man because I play sports? Are my kids trans because my girls like to play, football together and throw the football around? Are they trans men? Or are they gender fluid because then they'll put on dresses and do mermaid stuff? Help me understand that. If something doesn't make sense, it is not only okay to question and challenge it, but it's actually a responsibility to question and challenge it. Let's see. Let's see what else you guys are saying in terms of, so again, peak trans is, what is the moment that you realized that the peak thing is a total sham? And why is this not, come on, going up? Why? Oh, here we go. Okay. Jessica Tully said, what is a woman? Wrong answers only open my eyes wide. Interesting. Doe Eyes again says, for me, it was the misgendering law being passed here in Canada. Jordan Peterson, Bruce Jenner being awarded Woman of the Year. Yeah. Oh my God. The misgendering law is scary. New York City was doing the same thing. I don't know how far it got in New York City, but I do know that they were trying to pass something like that. Dylan Mulvaney and how Sloth Queen was treated really cemented it. Yeah, that was absolutely insane that a woman is not able to speak up about, I mean, literally the definition of who we are, that we don't have a say anymore. And again, and it just speaks to, and something else that I wanted to talk about was just the bigger picture of this, because again, once the information is out there, and once we've gotten kind of past these firewalls that didn't allow us to speak, and people are being given the information about how insane this is, and they still decide to dig their heels in, you've really got to analyze what is your agenda. And what I see is, in the Western world, we had a history. Again, it's important to acknowledge, whether we like it or not, that women are a crucial, and perhaps one of the most crucial, means of production. We are the bearers of human life. We are the gatekeepers. We choose which men get to procreate when, and we hold that standard, right? We can be manipulated, we can be coerced, but ultimately it is, through the bodies of women that all human life occurs. We get to decide which men get to carry on a legacy and which men will perish, and whose bloodline will perish with them. And that is a very stressful position for men to be in. Hence why men, do things like RAPE, SA. Hence why men do, are very coercive when it comes to women. And hence the development of things like, SLUT shaming, and things like, marriage, right? Marriage was about a way to lock down the woman's uterus as a means of production. Now that we have things like birth control, that we have access to abortion, that we can control our own means of production, and we are no longer financially destitute. That was another reason why women weren't allowed to work, because once women could support themselves, they would have control over which sort of men they could choose, if and when they wanted to choose, and if and when they wanted to carry babies. When you kept women destitute and dependent, well, they had to just go with whatever man was the highest bidder. And, he could pick out which woman he wanted, and then be in full control of her uterus, the children that she produced, who she had children with, right? Now we look at the Western women and how angry it makes men that women have so much control over their bodies as a means of production, right? And the Western woman is becoming less and less desirable to weak men, because rather than meeting the standard that a woman has set, saying, this is what I require in a man. If you want me to carry a child for you, if you want to earn me as a wife, if you want to earn the privilege of having a lineage, of having a legacy, of having a child, you're going to have to meet the standards that I have set, right? And you're going to have to collaborate with me. Men have lost a lot of control. That's very frustrating to them, right? But when you can divorce women from the decision making of how women are treated, of what access women have to different rights and privileges and things in society, and you can literally subvert something like feminist and feminist movements, and you can literally interchange women's voices with men's voices, then they get to go back into power. This is so much of why men want control over women, is because of our ability to give life, and because, again, access to sex, which men are very, very anxious about accessing. NMAX said, in 2015, trans women are women. As soon as I heard that, I knew something was up. And the infiltration of lesbian spaces at that time, it is hard. I mean, really, again, it is, in my opinion, child abuse. It is child abuse and child grooming. To tell a child to lie about biological reality to children, to lie about the nature of human bodies, the nature of human sexuality, the nature of, procreation and all those things, is grooming, and it's child abuse. And when you force women and children to repeat mantras that inherently put them at risk. Trans women are women. A man can become a woman. If you see a man, just be nice, just be kind. He just wants to pee. Oh, if you're nervous, well, that's a you problem. You're transphobic. That's something wrong with you. You need to correct that in yourself, and you need to let this man in pantyhose and a halter top come in and do whatever he wants to do behind that closed door that used to be your space. There's no difference between that man and the other man who went into the men's room, except for the fact that the other man who went in the men's room has a little more integrity and is probably safer than the guy that they are demanding you let into that bathroom. SK said, I love John Euler's work. Yenta Vegan says, my peak trans wake up was when I, a 3-decade lactation specialist, was ostracized by my support community for refusing to equate male-induced lactation to female-induced lactation. One of the most horrifying trends has been the complete overtake of the birth community, the birthing world, with gender ideology. I am horrified. I'm a New York Department of Health breastfeeding educator. I'm a trainer for breastfeeding educators. I am a Lamaze certified childbirth doula. I am a DONA certified I'm a Lamaze certified childbirth educator. I'm a DONA certified childbirth doula. I'm a NARM certified or a NARM eligible home birth midwife. I mean, I've trained, trust me, I have, I spent years and years in the birth community, and to see the way that it has been captured is heart-wrenching. It is always supposed to be a woman-centered movement. Any birth worker who does not understand what a woman is dangerous, and you need to stay away from them. Any birth worker who panders to this in any way, do not let them near your body. Do not let them near your birth. Do not let them near your baby or your family. That person is not fit to serve. Let's see. Strange Chaseo said, I lived in Queens. A man ran for the women's rep role. Queens had a law from the suffragette days that districts needed a man and a woman rep, but changed that policy. I peaked and moved. Wow, exactly. So again, and that's so important to talk about, because now women's voices that, we had fought to create spaces for, that we had originally been disenfranchised from, are now just able to be interchanged with a man's voice. And the gaslighting of saying, well, this is a woman. She gets to say. And yet somehow that man's voice always rises to the top. That man is somehow always, again, gets to be positioned right at the top once again. At least before they were honest about it and said, no, we just don't want women. We want to completely control you and keep you out. Now it's the fake accommodation of, oh yeah, we're inclusive of women, just like this woman over here. And it's some guy with his dick tucked. It's a little disingenuous, if you ask me. SK said, mine was getting banned from a pregnancy group for saying pregnant women. Wow. That was actually one of my earliest things too, was getting kicked out of a domestic violence group for refusing to acknowledge somebody else's abuser as she, her. It was some man who, some autogynephile who was abusing his ex-girlfriend and 3-year-old child, and she was sitting there defending him, being like, no, I was like, oh, so this guy, I was like, wait, so is this a guy or a girl? I was like, well, she recently went through a transition, and she's now she, her. I was like, oh, so you're saying it's a man? She's like, I don't agree with what he did to us, but that is not right. I will not disrespect him and other her and other trans women by, disrespect. So it's like, wow, how Stockholm Syndrome do you have to be to have endured physical, emotional, narcissistic abuse from some, unhinged man, but still feel the need to respect his pronouns? And of course, everyone swooped in, and it was me and some other girl who was like, no, this is BS. She was like on my side. Her and I got real cool on Facebook, and then that's when I decided to start the channel, because I was like, this is nuts, absolutely nuts. And I was like, so I'm not allowed in a women's domestic violence group unless I'm respectful to abusers and their right to what gaslight us. And I mean, didn't we already go through this where a man was able to access his ex-wife at a shelter, through this sort of stuff. So there was a situation. Actually, I don't think he claimed to be trans, but it just shows how critical it is that we maintain women's only spaces. There was a domestic violence shelter that a woman who escaped from her violent ex-husband with her children was living at. And again, anybody who knows, the first year after leaving an abuser is the highest risk of murder, of homicide from that abuser. That is the time where it is most critical to get out, gather your resources, do it strategically, stay completely away from him, keep a firm, wall in between you. This guy was able to get in, I guess, because he had pleaded with the something happened. He was able to get in, one of the janitors let him in. He was able to trick one of the janitors letting in. He came in and he ended up murdering her with an axe. So, yeah, imagine now we've given abusers an absolute streamlined entry point to their victims. All they have to do is just say, I identify as a woman, and they can get right in and get access to their victim. It is a safeguarding fail in every possible way. Locke says trans is the only desire to be the opposite sex, and the reasons are many and varied. You can desire it all you want. Desire away, my dear, but it has nothing to do with me. It has not. I have absolutely no interest in engaging with this desire. And again, like you said, the reasons are varied and many. Rad says the Canadian women's rape shelter being vandalized and defunded was around the time I peaked. I shared my concerns on social media and was doxxed and kicked off my local improv troupe. Wow, I'm really sorry to hear that, Elle. That was one of the most horrific scenarios that I had ever seen, and the fact that anybody immediately wouldn't be like, absolutely not, this is wrong. What do they nail a dead rat to the door? There was a women's rape shelter in Canada that was defunded and it was vandalized, and they had spray painted turf all over it, and I mean really aggressive, scary stuff, and basically threats of violence against these women and against this shelter because they refused to accept males. I don't know, because I guess the women who ran the shelter were so committed to the actual mission of the shelter, which is to protect women and children. Make your own shelter. It's really not hard. Go rent out a space if you're that passionate about it, and if you want a space for men who are raped by other men. Sure, they absolutely, deserve a space. Why the hell do you feel the need to infiltrate? And the reason is a lot of these men get a thrill from infiltrating these very sacred, protected spaces reserved for women. That's the excitement. It's not affirming to go into your own trans area, your own men's area, your own AGP. No, that's not exciting. That's not the point. And that's the thing. It's like when you show them an alternative, they get so indignant about it and angry almost, because no. And they'll give you all these reasons why that's good enough. And because the fact of the matter is they're not being honest about their real reasons for wanting to access these spaces that they claim they must have access to, these women's spaces. It's not about needing to feel safe. It is 100% about the thrill of being affirmed. These are predators finding a prey. SK. I also have my account on here banned all the time for commenting that these men that dress as women are still men. It's fun. Good for you. Strange Chasio. I believed in true trans for like a month after peaking, but Magdalene Burns' videos changed that. Yeah, me too. And I think that that's a really common step to go through when peaking. I think that a lot of people will peak, but because of such heavy programming and because of how emotionally charged the arguments for in support of the transgender movement are, I mean, that's how they are able to capture so many women in particular. And women really did the heavy lifting for these men in cementing a space for them in society, because it's a lot of emotional blackmail. It's a lot of, oh, you know, it looks like a woman and she's just like you and she's scared. And, oh, how could you leave out a woman like you? It's a just, and then they try to equate it to racism, being like, oh, just the way, and that to me is the most disgusting thing. Trying to equate, you know, segregating, you know, men and women from, you know, segregation that existed with, you know, black women. It to somehow put black women and you know, men who want to engage in a paraphilia and dress up as women as somehow like, you know, the same sort of lived experience is so offensive, and that's racist in my book. Okay, good. Yeah, they're saying the audio's okay. Yeah, sorry, Helena, I'm not sure why you're saying it's low, but hopefully. Let's see. Yeah, but anyway, so I think a lot of us go through this time of true trans where it's been so conditioned that when we do start to peak, it's like there's still a part of us that's like, well, what about, or maybe if, and well, if they've done, but when you really fully take a full inventory, you realize that true trans simply is not compatible with being gender critical. It's unfortunately, it's a hard line. Because when we leave a gray area, that's how the trans thing was able to happen. Once we were able to say, oh, well, you know, we convoluted the whole idea of intersex with being trans, and that, you know, there's this sort of like third, you know, identity that exists, and it's you know, fluid and it's undefined, and that opens up the door and the space for all the rest to flood in. Unfortunately, the fact of the matter is there are men, there are women. There is no third gamete. There is no speg. There are large gametes, which are eggs, which are created by females. There are small gametes, which are sperm, which are created by males. That's it. We are a sexually dimorphic species. There is no third. Okay? There is no, you know, just because there are disorders of sexual development is no justification that they're for a transgender argument. None whatsoever. And we have to hold that line. And in doing so, the compassion, of course, is for allowing for, you know, gender nonconformity. That's the compassion. Saying that, no, of course, as a man, you don't have to, you know, be into, you know, hypermasculinity and violence and the objectification of women. You know, of course not. You know, you don't even you don't even have to have, you know, a traditional nuclear family or whatever it is that we tell men that they have to be. As a woman, no, of course, you don't have to just go and be some subservient mother. You know, you don't have to just go and wear dresses and get into soft sciences and liberal arts and just be petite and demure. Of course not. No, that's the compassion. The compassion is not feeding into a delusion. The compassion is telling the truth. There is no compassion in a lie. There is none. There is only compassion in truth. That's when the healing of this nation will begin. That's when the healing of people who are struggling, who are disturbed in some way, who are dysphoric. That is how we can help them. By helping them come to terms with the truth and with the reality, and learn how to realign them with the bodies that they have, and how to love and celebrate those bodies, not mutilate and destroy them. And the thing is, the powers that be know that. The agenda is not actually about helping any of these people. It goes a lot deeper, and that's something else that we need to talk about. Zuriam Willem said I had to leave and come back for the audio to be okay. Oh, well, thanks for letting me know. Hopefully it stays okay. Let's take a look. Let's see. All right. Okay. Helena Blavatsky said, "My peak having an all-lady online space I enjoyed taking over by AGPs. Ever try to share a space with those guys? I'm so sorry. It's so true. It's like they love to sniff out." And that's why the true trans thing is also, again, it's such a Trojan horse, because you've got to understand one of the biggest motivators for these men is accessing women's only spaces. And guess what the new exciting women's only space is? Turfdom. Being a radical feminist. Being a trans exclusionary radical feminist, or a female exclusionary radical feminist, really. Or, I'm sorry, a male exclusionary radical feminist, a MRF, being someone that this is only for women. Well, the way that, people like Blair White and others will kind of get involved with us still is, again, by taking on some gender critical things. And the whole true trans, like, yeah, right, most of those AGPs are awful. We agree with you. But I'm a little bit different because I actually pass and I acknowledge that I'm a transsexual, but I'm still, so then all of a sudden everyone's like, wow, yeah, cool, you're kind of like one of us. And even the same thing with, Buck Angel. It's like, on the one hand, you advocate for protecting children, but then on the other hand, you're talking about, pornography and masturbation, and it's geared towards children. So which is it, Buck? It's all just a bag of contradictions. And the newest exciting space for them to try to infiltrate is gender critical communities. That's why now the big, the new popular thing is for a lot of trans identifying people to be gender critical, and it's being embraced by the Republican Party. You even see, you see it with Bruce Jenner on Fox News. Be careful, it is a Trojan horse. Let's see. Echo Kent said, "My peak trans was when my ex-husband, military, decided he was trans after being on social media and porn. I shared my concern over it, and he got shortcuts through social media to expedite his transition." Wow. That's another thing that I really want to take a look at. I've really noticed that there is a huge correlation between ex-military and autogynephilia. I don't know if it's sort of like dissociative disorder, triggered by PTSD and wanting to sort of dissociate from maybe things that they either saw or did that they believe are a consequence of them having to be men. So they were in these hypermasculine, violent spaces, having been in the military, and it was like pushed them so far towards this hypermasculine, aggressive, that it causes sort of post-traumatic stress, and it causes them to sort of swing back. And then dealing with, again, porn is an addiction. It's it starts off as a sense of relieving stress and fantasy, and it's this feeling of just, I think, almost wanting to be safe. I don't know if that, resonates with anybody, but I think in a lot of ways men have these very one-dimensional, two-dimensional views of what it's like to be a woman. And I've heard men complaining, be like, oh, women get to be protected. They get to be seen as, oh, something to be protected. That's because we're more vulnerable. The fact that there's this idea, this notion in society that women should be protected isn't because it's like we just get this special privilege for fun and we just get to be pedestalized for no reason. It's because we have greater vulnerabilities, and we do suffer from violence because of this. Vastly higher rates of sexual violence and things like that. And it's like this idea that they want to be, they have this really distorted view of what it feels like, to be a woman. They don't realize how much of it is oppression. I mean, they fantasize about our oppression. They fantasize about being kept by a man and protected and provided for, and all he has to do is prance around the house and look cute and have sex and turn his man on or whatever it is, and I think that men who have been in these like high stress, traumatic, highly hypermasculine situations get this sort of like like consoling feeling from wanting to become women, thinking that then I wouldn't have had to go to war. Then I wouldn't have had to go and push my body to the limit, push my my mind to the limit, be so emotionally ripped apart, by these basic training and all this sort of stuff. I wouldn't have had to go through that as a woman the way I did as a man. I wouldn't have to sit there and spar with these other men and maintain my masculinity. I could just be safe and all this sort of stuff. So I wonder if that's because I've seen there is a huge correlation with men in the military who just, show traits of being AGP. Hey, Connie, I miss you. I'm going to see you hopefully in August. Oh, and real quick, just as like some housekeeping stuff. This Sunday in New York City is Turf Pride. It's basically about getting the L out of the LGBTQ. It's about uplifting lesbians who feel alienated during Pride Month, who feel like they've been force teamed with the LGBTQ. And, obviously, trans is such a, really in opposition to what it means to be a lesbian. Being a lesbian means you're a homosexual female. It has everything to do with anatomy, is everything, and you cannot respect lesbian sexuality while at the same time trying to affirm gender ideology. It doesn't fit. It doesn't make sense. And those women end up especially being ostracized from their own spaces. If you go to any lesbian dating site, and again, it's already difficult to date as a lesbian, because it's, the dating pool is just smaller in general. But now it's been so infested with AGPs. It's so unfair. So anyway, so in New York City, we're going to be on the 23rd on Sunday at 2 p.m. We're going to be meeting in front of the UN building, and we're going to be having a speaker's corner there. And then on Saturday, we're going to be taking to Times Square and doing some street interviews. So stay tuned for that. And anybody who wants to help contribute to like travel expenses for us and hotel and stuff, I would so appreciate it. I don't have a lot of like wiggle room in my budget to do a lot of this out of pocket. So I just need some help with like gas and stuff like that. If anybody wants to help us out, and anything once, if I'm able to cover my own gas, I'm also going to try to help some of the other women cover their lodging and staying expenses. So my Cash App is at a slightly twisted XX. And my PayPal is a slightly twisted female at gmail.com, and Venmo is at a slightly twisted female. So really, like, any support, would be so helpful. Just that was like one of my reservations about even going up there, is just how expensive it is to go up there and stay even for one night. So but otherwise, we're going to be live streaming, so check it out. I'm excited. And so the attack on lesbian women and the lesbian identity, lesbian spaces, is a huge one. Absolutely. Let's see. I missed you guys. Oh, it's so good to see the chat so lively. I really missed everybody. All right, let's see. Okay, Strange Chassio said they love saying no debate because nothing piques people like listening to trans people. That's so true. Susie Glucksman says, my first big peak moment was seeing the horrific surgeries, especially on TIFs. The phalloplasty is so brutal. Yeah, and for those who have not seen Exelanzic's phalloplasty files or vaginoplasty volumes, please do. It's such essential viewing for anybody. It is gruesome. It is brutal. And for anybody who cares about children, who cares about, homosexuals with internalized homophobia, or anybody, if you care about trans people at all, people who with gender dysphoria, you would want to protect them from these procedures at all costs. They are absolutely brutal. They're brutal. They're terrifying. They're dangerous. It is, that's one of the most, phalloplasties is one of, if not the most dangerous plastic surgery procedures, and it's totally non-essential. So, no, also I have a video called, my top video, if you go to my channel, it's a ton of clips of people talking about their experiences with gender affirmation or whatever. It's genital mutilation surgery. It's not gender affirmation. It's not, there's no such thing as sex reassignment. That doesn't exist. You are approximating the appearance of the opposite sex genitalia, and very crudely so at that. Yeah. Oh, God. I'm sorry. Just thinking about these phalloplastic. Could you imagine if someone like whipped that out on you? And me as like, I like men, And it's like if I like got with somebody who somehow got past my radar and I thought it was, I can't imagine. I cannot imagine like actually going along and thinking that a TIF is a man. It's just, again, we're so hardwired and programmed to identify these things, women especially. But let's just pretend. And then someone like pulled that out on me. I'd be like, oh no. Oh no, sweetheart. Oh my God, you poor thing. I am so sorry you did that to yourself. And no, that will come. That is not coming anywhere near my vagina. Like, it's like a pus bag. It's like a fruit roll-up, an arm skin fruit roll-up of just hair and pus and infection and dysfunction and mental illness all rolled up and then just sewn on to someone's pubic bone. Like, no, I'm good. Thanks, I'll pass though. Like no, thank you. Hey, Ella Androphobia. Hi, my darling. She said, I'm here, currently stopped at a red. Hello. SK said, yes, those castration surgeries are brutal. That's what they absolutely are, castration surgeries. In some ways, I hate to say it, that like maybe it's a good thing that some of these men are castrating themselves, but like still, I mean, doing it to children, absolutely not. What was done to Jazz Jennings should be enough to pique the whole world. It is horrific. Jazz Jennings is the first child to really be like fully genitally mutilated while a minor, and very publicly so, on the I Am Jazz series, and just being pushed by her narcissistic parents, her histrionic this poor boy. It's really sad. P said, I peeked in a ContraPoints video, J.K. Rowling one. He said he disliked the slogan, trans women are women, because it begs the question, what is a woman? A question he found boring and uninteresting. Yeah, so sorry, ContraPoints, that it's, you see, the thing is, he says stuff like that, it's boring and uninteresting, because he just wants to gloss by it. He wants it to just be accepted that trans women are women, that we don't even need to mention it, that it is what it is, and no one has the right to sit and to look and to question, like, does this make sense, Because they don't. They just want to be able to get in. They want you to be quiet. It's business as usual for misogynistic men. Be quiet. Take what's coming to you. No, you don't have a right to say no. No, you don't have a right to put down boundaries. We're going to do what we want, and you just got to shut up and take it. That's what they want. They don't like when you're able to speak up. That's why they've, for history, kept women silent, kept women disenfranchised, disempowered. So they can just do what they want. They don't have to bother. They only have to bother with a nagging wife who's kept at home, who has no access to a bank account or resources or power anyway, and who is pregnant every other year. Right? That's the extent of dealing with women that they really want to have to deal with. It's just misogynistic men, business as usual. Rasin77 said, those photos, though, appalling, all of them. Yeah, another thing is, if you can't stomach watching the videos themselves, just go through top surgery. Even these surgeons who think that they're showing off, like, their best work, it's horrific. Or, botched top surgery is terrifying. It's really, really gruesome. Lady Erenin, Seraph, and the Crow Goddess. I like that. In UK, the CPS have now said that if partner doesn't fund their partner's transition, then it's abuse. Can you believe this? Outrageous. Wow. Wow. So if you don't go along with, oh, and you know what? That's interesting that you say that. So look, on here, I wanted to bring up this one really fast. And again, since, just in spirit of the fact that we are talking about the rights of lesbian women to assert themselves as women, as lesbians, as, male exclusive, they exclude men, right? So there was this one, that's what we're really focusing on Sunday. It's important, that we stand up for lesbian women, really. And just to be clear, lesbian radical feminists are the godmothers of gender critical feminism, period. Point blank, period. They are the ones who have been sounding the alarm since the 1970s. They gave birth to this movement. This movement is the child of lesbian radical feminists. They deserve full support and acknowledgement. And it's like, that's one of the uncomfortable truths for, the Republican Party is now they're so behind. They want to kind of rebrand radical feminism and rebrand gender critical radical feminism as, this sort of right wing thing. And no, it is, you have to accept that, lesbian women gave birth to this movement, and it is because of the legitimacy of being gay and lesbian and being a homosexual person that makes queer theory and gender ideology so illegitimate. They both can't be legitimate. We know that homosexuality is legitimate. The other stuff is not. All right, so really quick, let's just look at this r/trans post. Hold on, leave. Hold on. Where is the stupid? Oh, here we go. Okay. Sorry, guys. All right. Yeah, though lesbian feminists have been fighting this since the 70s. They deserve the full credit of giving birth to this movement. Let's see. Hey, Shinobu. All right, so r/trans says, I told my lesbian girlfriend I'm trans. She said she accepted me, but she keeps calling herself a lesbian? Again, they want you, they are, oh my God, it's like they want this autocratic, no questions asked, total compliance from everyone around them, to the point that even if it totally dismantles somebody else's identity, and again, an identity that's based in reality, a homosexual female, a lesbian, is based in tangible, real things, right? But that has to be dismantled. This is and this post right here fundamentally explains why it is such, this movement is so homophobic at its core, at its roots. It's truly a homophobic and particularly anti-lesbian ideology. So it says, so a week ago, I came out to her as a trans man. Before this, I thought I was agender. Like, bro, come on. And, sorry. And she said she accepted me for who I was. And she'll always love me no matter what gender I am. It's like, so I don't understand. Like, what is it if you're like a butch lesbian or something? How is that different? How is that experience any different? Or than being a trans man? You know what I mean? So is it about your genitals? A day later, I wake up and see her in her story calling herself lesbian, even saying that she's disgusted by men. She keeps saying that even now. Yeah, because she's a lesbian and you are a woman. Just because you're delusional doesn't mean that she is. Miss Misery Gloom says it's so unbelievably self-absorbed. So unbelievably self-absorbed. I mean, to the nth degree. Says, now, I don't understand if there was any miscommunication or if she just doesn't accept me as a man. Miscommunication. Yeah, no one accepts you as a man because you are a woman. woman. Like, of course she doesn't accept you as a man. Does she want to hurt your feelings? Probably not. Does she want to sit there and rip you apart? Probably not. You know, she just wants you to shut up. Maybe I wasn't clear enough. I got really anxious telling her, and she might have thought I'm still questioning. My question is, right, why is it that we have to accept that you like women, and only women, I'm sure, right? We have to accept what your sexuality is, but you can't accept the sexuality and lived experiences of your own partner who you claim you love. It says, I feel not respected and really dysphoric. Oh, wait, hold on. I know she shouldn't change her sexuality for me, but as I am a trans man, I know for a fact that even after coming out, she's attracted to me. How can she still identify as a lesbian? So just because you've been binge watching TikTok videos and you've gotten so deranged into this sort of algorithmic programming that has divorced you from reality, like, just because you went on that weird little, ride, how about you recognizing what this does to your girlfriend? Who, again, no, she's not. You guys came into this as a lesbian relationship. You decided to, pull all this delusional crap, halfway through. And now what? Your feelings are getting hurt because she doesn't... I mean, she's playing along enough to stay with you. But why the hell? It's so Witchy XX says it's basic boundary violation. But that's the thing. The thing about this movement is that it insists on pushing the boundaries of others. It does. Okay, and here's another big thing that I want to make. Being a lesbian can exist whether anyone acknowledges it or not, right? You can be a lesbian whether anyone knows, whether anyone acknowledges it. You don't have to do a thing. You don't have to change the way you look. You don't have to change the way you dress. You don't have to change the way you name yourself. Anything. Just be a lesbian. To be trans or queer requires other people to acknowledge it, to change the way that they think, the way that they speak, the way that they interact with the world around them. It literally... Unless other people acknowledge you as your, transness, then it's almost like you don't exist and you're super dysphoric. I've never heard, I'm sure it hurts, for lesbian women. I'm sure it must hurt your feelings if people don't want to accept your sexuality. But your identity as a homosexual woman isn't somehow, invalidated or doesn't exist or change just because other people won't acknowledge it. Trans identities only exist if other people acknowledge it. It depends. It is so insecure. It requires that you push beyond the boundaries of other people. It requires that you insert yourself in spaces that you don't really belong. It absolutely, it can't just exist quietly in its own space. It requires that you impose yourself onto other people. That is a massive part of the difference. Yay! RouXX, I can't wait. Maria, I can't wait. I can't wait. Now I'm excited for New York. Yay, Maria. All right. Let's see. Blah, 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 blah. Edit. I see many people talking about the fact that even if she identifies as a lesbian, she could still like me. But the fact is she is disgusted by men for personal reasons. It makes sense. I think I've also told her I did in fact not like the term lesbian. So that's why I'm upset she's still using it. So what if she says she doesn't like the term trans? Then how could you say that you don't like the term lesbian? And again, this just goes fundamentally how incompatible being an ally to lesbian women it is with supporting the trans and queer theory. It's just incompatible, period. Let's see. Hey, Days of Boyhood. Blah, blah, blah. Let's see. I'm upset that she's still using it. I agree the fact that some people might feel comfortable. It's not a universal experience. Personally, I don't feel comfortable. Like, boo-hoo. That's because you, again, and this puts your internalized homophobia on full display. You want to live a heteronormative life. You're a lesbian woman, probably a butch lesbian woman. That makes you uncomfortable. Everybody has to change to accommodate your insecurity. It's insane. And then also another thing that I wanted to bring up is funny because I was thinking about this, and this is so true, but just as a big shout out to the lesbian TERFs who have been in this since day one. This really cool article, it's on some blog, it's on it's americanmind.org. This was written a few years ago, but I found it and I just thought it was cool. This is like a super right-wing thing. It says TERF Wars, How Radical Lesbians Are Braver Than You Are, by Peachy Keenan, which I guess is a pseudonym. While you watch Fox News, radical left-wing lesbians are fighting your culture war. An epic battle is being waged on the left. It's not between Medicare, all nuts, and Obamacare nostalgics. It's not even between the Green New Dealers and the slightly less green dealers. It's between feminists and transgenderists. Let's see. Radical left-wing ladies, the feminazis of old, are mostly progressive, pro-abortion, against basically everything mainline conservatives believe in. But they are risking life and limb, career and reputation for one single reason. They are not willing to surrender their own identities as biological women. The pejorative term for those fearless females, I apologize for using it, is TERF, trans-exclusionary radical feminists. Translation: biological women who want to bar trans women from traditionally female spaces. Yes, there is a painfully long story behind the name. Yes, multifarious splinter factions have been skirmishing over it for years for the past few decades. Yes, I'll spare you the details. Gender studies graduate students have produced enough paper on the subject. Blah, 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 blah. And this, again, so, and the thing that's important to acknowledge is, being gender critical is really starting to go mainstream. And as it goes more mainstream, it's really important that we pay attention to exactly like the dialogue that's happening. We've got to be clear that we don't want to swing back to, traditional gendered norms and a very strict gendered box. Okay, it's important that we're holding on to biological reality, the autonomy of what it is to be a woman. And I do think overall there is such like a bigger thing at play here, like just to put on my tinfoil hat a little bit. But like I was saying, that, controlling, I mean, across time and history, men have sought to, one thing that women have always had that makes them both powerful but also vulnerable is the fact that we are the means of production for producing children. You really only need one man, right? Most men are expendable. One high quality man, and women can can replenish mankind, right? We are the gatekeepers. We get to choose which men will get a legacy, which don't. This has always been a massive source of anxiety for men, that they don't get to, control women. That's why now that the Western woman has access to, legal protections and now works and is able to financially provide, and a lot of the things that they were used to be artificially installed to keep women dependent on men. A lot of these rights that were clipped so that women would have to be dependent on men, so men could continue to control women as a means of production for creating human life, have been they've lost control. So what's another way? Again, inserting their own voices to change what a woman is so that they have impact on things like legislation. Also, I believe that, again, and this is for another live stream, but there is such a clear relationship for the push for MAPS, minor attracted people, and we know what the real term is. I don't want to say it on YouTube. Pushing for that, because once we can begin to change the rules and suspend reality, and once we start to empathize with and side with sexually degenerative men, and their fetishes, and we begin to normalize and humanize those as important aspects of who they are as people, then we get closer and closer to being able to humanize and empathize with, well, maybe it's just a sexuality, men who like, young children and things like that. And again, once we can bring those things mainstream, these men these men can then begin partaking in what they really want to do, which is to regain control over women. And a lot of it is about globalization. They see that Western women are already so much effort to try to control. Well, we can open that up to, that's why hence all the sex tourism in other countries. Men are going over and literally picking out brides. I lived in the Philippines. I lived and worked in the Philippines, and Taytay Rizal, which is about 45 minutes outside of Manila, the capital of the Philippines. When I had taken my kids to like a touristy part for a weekend, I was horrified. My ex-husband and I, our jaws were on the floor. Everywhere you looked, there were these young, and I mean young, Filipino women with these decrepit, old, disgusting men, and they'd be all booed up, linked arms, holding hands, vast gestures of public displays of affection, kissing, fondling each other in public, clearly coupled up, and it was horrifying. And the fact of the matter is that the Philippines, Asia, really pretty much anywhere outside of the West, is a huge supply of providing brides, sexual labor, and wives and women for these men who otherwise are not high quality enough to meet the standards of a liberated woman, of a woman who can provide for herself, of a woman who is at an equal footing, that sort of divine. And I know a lot of lesbians hate, a lot of the radical feminists hate when I talk about this sort of divine feminine, divine masculine, but I do believe that there is like a feminine and masculine, these like energies that are equal, and they're, they are component of each other, and it's like when like a weak masculine person, a weak male who's not able to sort of match, and uphold and meet the standards of, a woman in her full, sense of being able, like when he no longer is able to use coercive control in terms of money or resources or voting power, and women are no longer dependent and disenfranchised. And a lot of these men are not high quality enough, because the fact of the matter is most men are not really high. A lot of men are disposable. That's why on the Titanic, why do you think they said women and children first? A lot of men really should not reproduce, and probably won't. And that's why they're so competitive about getting a mate. And for the longest time, if you're a good man, if you're an honorable man, rather than trying to circumvent the standards put in place by women, you try to rise and be the best man that you can be, so that you can earn the right to procreate. You can earn the right to a legacy. You can earn the right to a family. But why do that when, hey, we can just go out to, take a trip out to Manila or the Philippines or Thailand and just go buy a woman, right? Hey, because you know what? Unlike these Western women who are educated, who are wealthy, who are able to vote and who have power, able to buy things, able to own things, these women are destitute. They're desperate. They're poor. We get back in control over their means of production. And again, and it's like, God, it just goes so so the younger and younger that we can coerce women, the younger that we can get women, we can normalize. I'm telling you, so many of these girls look so underage with these 70-year-old men that we saw in the Philippines, and it was everywhere. And I was like, it's so common. It was hard not to stare. It was hard not to just be like, oh my God. And again, they want that normalized so that these men don't have to sit there and negotiate with women about being able to marry a woman or have a child with a woman. So they can just pick one out, get the child that they want, get the sort of domestic labor. I mean, imagine, these men can pick out a woman, you get free sexual labor. You put her in a house, she's going to cook for you, she's going to clean. It's like the Bang Maid, It's like you marry a woman, you now get full right and access to her uterus, full right and access to her body, control and decision making. And for weak, lame men who really should not procreate, this opens up a huge market for them. And we're globalizing, and it's another reason why we're trying to destroy the idea of being proud, as a nation or having a national identity, so that once we kind of destroy this idea of the nation state and we can kind of make this huge global economy with a global culture and, again, then we can consolidate power. I mean, there's so many bigger things going on here, and I really do believe it's such a rat king, sort of like what Moon said about what the trans movement is. There's so many other things I want to break down about that. I'll try to do it in a pre-recorded video, but I have so many notes on the longer that I meditate on this and read about it, and I'm starting to see all the connections, because again, the thing that keeps tripping me up is the why. Is once this has been revealed and you've been given enough information to peak, why are some people still digging their heels in? Why are the powers that be so invested in defending this, in upholding it? Why is Dylan Mulvaney going to the White House? What is going on? What is the agenda here? This is not by mistake. This isn't because suddenly, we became just such a compassionate place that we decided to dump resources and time, and we started to bully and threaten, entire professional agencies like the American Medical Association and the American Academy of Pediatrics and, the OBGYN groups. I mean, there's a reason why all of a sudden everybody has been cut down to their knees in bowing to this trans thing. There is powerful motivation behind it. Absolutely. So when people aren't peaking the way that they should, you've really got to take a look. Why? What is your weird motivation for wanting to still uphold and buy into this clown world? Let's see. Hey, Mandy. Hey, Judy C. Hey, Christina. Susie Glucksman. Hey, guys. Hey, Barb Fighter. Hey, guys. Let's see. Oh, it's so good to see you. Connie, Karen, Alexa. Oh, it's so good to see some of your guys' names. Maestrom. Hey, guys. I missed you guys. All right, let's see. Hey, Abel. Oh no, let's see. Why is it? Oh no. Alright, anyway. Being in, why'd it cut off my earlier stuff? I guess it eventually, whatever. Being in the totally captured, okay, so Miss Misery Gloom says, being in the totally captured disabled community where we try to this is back for people, how did people peak? What made them recognize? For a sane, intellectually honest person, peaking will make it so that you can never go back to buying into this again. It's like an irreversible state change that happens. Once you see this movement for what it is, if you are an honest person, if you don't have some sort of nefarious agenda, once you are shown the true nature of the gender ideology, you can never go back to supporting it. I truly believe that. I don't believe that any intellectually honest person can ever, in their right mind, go back to supporting this once they see it for what it is. And those who don't, you need to take a look at. So Miss Misery Gloom said, being in the totally captured disabled community where we try to bring attention to our forced sterilization, yet they were fine with it when it came to trans and pushed that agenda hard. Wow, that's a really, really interesting and good point. That's a really interesting and good point. That's so true. It's like, yeah, we were all against forced sterilization until it came to doing it to children who can't consent because they are gender nonconforming, right? It makes no sense. Susie Glucksman said, it took about 6 months before I could admit to myself that we had already lost the rights I thought we still had. Yeah, it's scary. And that's why, and for people who think that like, oh, well, this is something you can just peek and we're just going to let this culture war play out and, well, it's not hurting anybody and I don't want to get involved. Sorry to say, I didn't want to get involved either, okay? I'm tired, all right? I got 4 kids. I just want to lay around and, let my beautiful boyfriend feed me grapes while I paint pictures and play with my kids and eat yogurts. That's how I want to spend my life after I just battled cancer. Okay? I want to go to the pool and I want to just lay out. I want to float around on a raft and I want to drink, martinis and things like that. I want to just chill. But I realized how critical this is. If we don't win this, the more that we surrender, the more ground that we surrender to this, it is going to be harder and harder and harder to pull back. We already see it. The level of censorship that is going on. And I realized I cannot leave this mess for my children to inherit. I won't. I can't. I won't. I don't need to make a name for myself. I don't care. Okay? No one needs to know my name. No one needs to know my face. But if I can still have some impact on this, I'm good. Then I can just get out and go, lay around. I go garden or something. Just, oh God, let my boyfriend braid my hair while I watch TV. That's just these are the things I fantasize about. I don't want to be I just want this done so the kids don't have to do it, so I don't ever have to deal with it again. Just hurry up and win the damn thing. All right. SK said, these women seem so traumatized they resort to literally defending their abusers. Absolutely. Susie Glucksman said, many of these people do look like they are being held hostage. Panic when anyone gives them a glimpse of reality. Cult programming. Absolutely. And a lot of them are, by these it's narcissistic abuse. And it's this on a massive level though. It really is. It's if you listen to a lot of the programming from people Jeffrey Marsh and Dylan Mulvaney and a lot of these, trans influencers, it's absolutely narcissistic abuse. It's passive aggressive. The way that they basically, the way that, Sloth Queen was treated and how, Dylan Mulvaney sort of upheld the way that she was being treated and stoked that fire. It's really serious. It is on a mass scale narcissistic abuse. And unfortunately, people are developing these relationships because we are so hyper online. We are so glued to our screens. We begin to have these proxy relationships with people that we see online, people whose content that we consume, where it feels like a real relationship. So when people are being told that you are unkind, if you question that man who comes in, or if you don't see the beauty in a trans woman, in a 56-year-old man wearing a nightie, a lace nightie, a little teddy, and oh my God, wearing pantyhose. And if you don't affirm that is beautiful and feminine, you are wrong and unkind, and you should, basically be punched in the face. And then you see all these other, GAMPs and AGPs who are yeah, I punch a turf. This real threat of violence. People, especially people who typically are very empathetic. Who are easy to manipulate because they're empathetic, because they're compassionate, because maybe they're a little bit naive. And these people really take this stuff to heart, mostly women. And they're wow, oh my God, I can't, I feel so ashamed that I'm a little bit grossed out, weirded out. But of course I would date a trans man. Of course, I'm an ally. And then these are the type of people who end up transing their kids because they're so taken by this. It's a mass hysteria. And rather than actually having a narcissist in your house who's manipulating and abusing you, you're allowing them into your mental space by going on places like TikTok where they can access you, and it feels like you're having a real conversation. Unfortunately, that conversation becomes one-sided because it's just them yelling at you. And even when you have a dialogue, any gender critical ideas are censored, so it looks like everybody agrees. It looks like the consensus that, oh, we all agree that, to be pro-trans is the right way to go, and gender is real, and sex is not important, and women should share spaces with autogynephiles. It looks like everyone agrees with that, when anyone who speaks to the contrary is violently censored. When you have automated algorithms that go through and automatically delete any channel that speaks up about the dangers of this. When people are being deplatformed, thrown off, of course it seems like, oh wow, hey, that's why if you already feel kind of naturally uncomfortable with the whole trans thing, you're kind of thinking, man, I must be the only one. There must be something wrong with me because everybody seems to be so for it. Yeah, that's what happens when you censor every dissenting voice. Let's see. Oh God, why is I can never whatever. Oh, let me get down to the bottom. Oh, here we go. Okay. Let's see. Maestrom says some of these parents will fight to the death. They have to. The alternative is to face what they did to their own kid. Helen Joyce just spoke about that. And absolutely. Could you imagine laying down at night, and if you had fully transed your kid and the kid is having all these complications and you're still being told by doctors, well, let's just get one more procedure, do one more this, one more nip, one more tuck, and we'll hear from, and somehow I feel like these people are such narcissists that they'll make you feel like you've not done enough to affirm your child, and that's why it's not working, and you just need to get this procedure and that procedure, and you need to keep going, and they have you in this chokehold, this psychological chokehold. Could you imagine once you start to peak and you lay down at night and you look at this beautiful child that you created, who was born so perfectly in their body, in their healthy, functional body, that was safe, that was developing, that was growing beautifully, and you decided to interfere with that and mutilate it and ripped it apart? Oh my God. And it's like, you either have enough integrity to sit there and say, I did the worst thing that a parent could do, and I put my child directly in harm's way, and I allowed them to be experimented on, which in something that we will look back at is one of the most horrific cases of mass social hysteria, and just this total social bizarro experiment, and I participated in it. And not only did I participate, I didn't just participate in it for myself, I handed my child over to it. That would take a level of honesty and self-reflection that I don't think these people even are capable of. Because if they were, they wouldn't have gotten here in the first place. And they are going to cling to every confirmation bias, everything that says that they've done the right thing. They have to. Same thing with these doctors who are able to profit off of this. The only way that they can kind of deal with that cognitive dissonance of what they're doing is so evil is to just cling to the idea that, no, it's not. I'm doing the right thing. I'm saving lives. And then again, these cult members of people who go and they mutilate themselves, who are almost uniformly horrified at the results and in so much pain and tragedy of what they've done to their bodies, but because they're so terrified of acknowledging, oh my God, I did something that wasn't necessary, I did something irreversible, I've spent resources, money, broken my family's hearts when I told them I was doing this. I forced them to get on board. I made a huge deal, and oh my God, I was wrong. How difficult that is to come to terms with. That's why people like Shapeshifter are so like unique and rare. To have gone that far and then to have the integrity to be like, my God, I was so deeply wrong. I was totally bamboozled. I had no critical thinking that would have protected me from this. And I will live with it for the rest of my life. And it is horrifying. They just don't have it. So anybody who is not able to peak as, again, this is now, and I say this because this is now, coming to the forefront of the national conversation. And a big shout out to this movement. Every single one of you, all of us. We are the reason why this conversation is being had on a national level. People like Connie, people like Jennifer. I mean, all of you, all of us. We brought this. We did, This is why this conversation is being had on a national scale. And that's why we really need to pay attention. It's going to ramp up. The rhetoric's going to ramp up during the 2024 election cycle. And we need to take a look at it. We need to see, so now that people are finally being confronted with this, opposing these gender critical arguments, for those who continue to push back, take a look at why. Ask yourself why. Really take a look at those people. What is it that you are clinging to? Because it really doesn't make sense that any intellectually honest person would hear gender critical arguments and still say that this is the right thing to do. Susie Witchy XX says people are peaking hard. Absolutely. Susie Glucksman says that's why we must create an atmosphere that is forgiving to the ones who get out of cold. Absolutely. I totally agree. I totally agree. Maystrom says exactly strange that Munchausen mama never going to let go of that little boy. I hope he finishes colleges and moves far away as he can. I know. And the thing is about Jazz. The thing about Jazz too is I had so much empathy for him. But he's an adult now, and if he continues to play along with this charade, it's going to be the point where, again, and I have a video called Abuse to Abuser Pipeline. Unfortunately, the victims of childhood abuse can, unless they do the healing work and the shadow work necessary to begin to heal themselves, can begin to re-perpetuate those same sort of toxic thinking and abusive traits. And he will, at a certain point, no longer be a victim if he continues to say that this was a good idea. I can no longer look at Jazz and say, well, poor Jazz, because, Jazz isn't a little boy anymore. Okay, Jazz is now an adult who's living out the horrific consequences of these evil actions that were pushed upon him by his narcissistic parents. And if he doesn't have the ability to take a step back and say, oh my God, oh my God, what have we done? I cannot let this happen. Not one more child, then he is just as culpable. Let's see. Felipe said, I peaked in early 2021, and ever since that, my political views changed completely. I was completely liberal, and the realization that every political movement could be corrupted. Absolutely. Barb Fighter says, remember the UK glamour cover of the pregnant man during Pride? We will be seeing more and more of it. Oh my God, it's horrible. It's horrible. May said, not trying to be contentious, but I've never heard this better trans than gay. Well, the better trans than gay is very, very, I don't know about here. I can see it. I just don't have enough experience with these kind of families, but I know for a fact that in Iran, that's literally the thing. It's illegal to be homosexual, but if you transition, then you can live in a homosexual relationship, right? If you're a gay man, you can't marry a man, but there is a loophole. If one of you transitions, then you get to be accepted in Islamic society. in Iran. And that's why Iran is actually becoming an international destination point for getting these kinds of surgeries. Maestrom says, I've seen a lot of videos celebrating kids that have come out trans in more red states. I don't know how anyone doesn't watch those videos and see that his parents transitioning the gay way. And that's exactly why Blair White, I think, is so dangerous. Because Blair White is sort of this like silver lining for these, liberal, these progressive, Republican right-wingers who are like, oh my God, I don't want to have a gay son. I know he's twink. Not only is he gay, but he's like a twink and he's real effeminate. But then it's like, well, hey, look, rather than having a gay son who doesn't fit, who your gender mold of what a man should be, well, you can also have a daughter who can be, beautiful, and then he doesn't have to be in a gay relationship. You can still uphold this sort of heteronormative thing. It's sort of this like, oh, look what can happen, look what can be, and people like, Blair White and Buck Angel are so much, screw what Buck Angel says. It's like she's so much of a do as I say, not as I do. Of course, people are going to say, oh, but, I could just be like that. She's a walking billboard for homosexual children who live in unaccepting environments to just be like, well, if I could just do that, then I could just be a man, and then I don't have to worry about having to be a lesbian. Just like in this r/trans thing, well, I don't want to have to be a lesbian, right? It's then I can just be a straight man, or I can be a Blair White, and I can be this beautiful, smart, successful, like straight woman who is able to embody all this sort of Republican ideals of this like ideal woman. Right? Because God forbid we just have this is why we need to push back against the idea of the rigid gender norms that even Matt Walsh says he still stands by. Does he not understand? That's what got us in the mess in the first place. Hello. Fictional Me says, Jazz, what about his brain development? Does he have the cognitive ability, let alone access to opposing argument? This is what I asked myself. I completely agree he's legitimizing harm. Yeah, I mean, I think so. I think if he's at Harvard, you know what I mean? I think he can definitely, figure it out, put 2 and 2 together, I hear what you're saying, but I wouldn't give him too much credit. But all right, guys, I love you guys. I'm going to Robert White. You're right, Ella. Robert. I love you guys. I am checking out. I will hopefully be back soon, but definitely check in. Like I said, if anybody wants to support us getting to New York, please. My Cash App is $ at a slightly twisted XX. It's all in my bio. PayPal is a slightly twisted female at gmail.com, and Venmo is at a slightly twisted female. So anything helps, just for like gas and food and having to stay while I'm there. That's been like my biggest hold up about going, is just having the funds to get there. So if you want to be generous and support the cause so that we can get this on the streets of New York City. And if anyone remembers how hardcore it was last time Posey Parker came to New York City, it is going to be a wild ride. So I look forward to live streaming this weekend, and hopefully I can get on before then. But I wanted to check in with you guys. I missed you guys. So good to see you. Yay, Witchy. Yay, guys. I love you. Oh, I missed you guys. Yay. All right, guys. I'll see you soon. Bye. Keep fighting the good fight. Oh. Also, one last thing. I told something I've been wanting to say. Listen, I've been off kind of like just, meditating a lot. I've been focusing on my health. I've just been trying to like detox from the internet big time. I'm really just trying to stay away from drama. But I do want to say I've been kind of out of the loop with the drama that's been going on in the community, but stuff like, I hate even calling it out by name, but like the Exolansic and Karen, and the Karen and Exolansic feud and all this sort of stuff. And I hope you guys don't get mad at me for calling. Please, guys, I love you both. Karen Davis and Exolansic. Guys, please. I hate seeing us tearing each other apart. I know you guys love each other. You guys are both incredible forces of nature. You both are such powerful women. It is hard to get along when we have such powerful, just personalities that come in contact with each other. But I really hope that you guys can either just take some time apart, remember who you guys are. I don't want to see you guys fight. I love you both. I really, really hope that can be resolved. And anybody else, guys, I'm seeing some of you guys, and I'm not saying anyone specifically in this chat, but I'm seeing a lot of people egg on the feud between the two of them. I was just kind of going through some of the video. Guys, knock it the fuck off, okay? I understand it's like we get a hit of dopamine when we can see drama. It's a reason why people like reality TV. It's a reason why people like court television. We like seeing back and forth. We like the catnip. One thing I will say about, unfortunately, a lot of, the community can really, really, really escalate these feuds and feeding them. Guys, like, just please, we need them. We need them to work together. Can we not feud them not getting along? I understand that whatever they're going through, but let's just not, let's not. They both contributed too much. It's got to stop. Anyway. All right. I love you guys. I'll see you later. That's my all. I'll see you guys in New York. Bye.